next thing you know, one of the tops of those Russian olive trees just starts shaking and thrashing real bad. I mean, this thing moved in such stealth that I didn't hear it until it took 3 steps, and it was right up on me. Because I could see him, he was eyeballing where that pistol was in that holster.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, not too much. How you doing, bud?
I'm excited. I'm excited about this show.
As always, I'm excited too, man. Every show is exciting. We talk to these guys, these people who've had encounters. I love listening to their stories and what happened to them, and try to imagine it in my mind as they're telling the story, and you kind of picture it in your head, don't you?
Seems we learn something new every single time.
As always.
So, it's always fun.
And if anyone's out there who's had an encounter and they want to come talk to us and be on our show, please get a hold of us. You can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. You can get a hold of us on Facebook at Cryptid Creatures, Instagram, Cryptid_Creatures. Anywhere else, Brian, they can reach out to us?
Twitter.
Right. So we're out there, guys. Get in touch with us. Please let us know if you've seen something and you want to come on and talk. But let's not waste any more time. We're going to bring Zach on tonight.
Let's do this.
Zach is, again, from Southern Illinois and has a lot going on down there. So let's bring him on. You ready, man? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Zach, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah, definitely. Zach, you are in Southern Illinois area, and you've had some interesting encounters going on since you were a child. Why don't you just go ahead and break in and start talking about those and tell us about your upbringing and all that good stuff. Give us a little, preliminary story before and then what happened. And
sure thing. Well, as you can tell by my surroundings, I live in the middle of nowhere. I live on a cattle ranch in rural Williamson County in Southern Illinois. I've been involved in the cattle business since I was 5 years old, and then I'm a 5th generation cattle farmer to start off. And that's me in a nutshell, first and foremost. I'm a referee, retired pro wrestler for Southern Illinois. I am now a full-time referee for independent pro wrestling promotions around Southern Illinois and Kentucky, Indiana, and Missouri. And
cool.
I'm an outdoorsman. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I love to camp. I love to hike, explore. I love to travel. And that's just me in a nutshell. But it all starting off whenever growing up, I was always interested in the unknown. And it's all started whenever I started, watching Monster Quest on the History Channel back in 2007 and 2006. And it really didn't click because, like I said, I had my first encounter back in August of 2004 whenever I was 9 years old. That was long before Monster Quest come out. And
what happened
it didn't
there?
Start, and it didn't start clicking then until I started hearing the hairy man, the skookum, the Sasquatch, the Yowie, the Yeti. It didn't start clicking that could have been what I encountered back in 2004 until I started hearing recordings, and I was listening on YouTube, and I went and I found the Ohio Moaning Call that was recorded by Matt Moneymaker back in '94, and that was sounded darn near accurate to what I'd heard whenever I was 9 years old in Randolph County, Illinois. Then that was in 2004, but I wouldn't have my first face-to-face encounter with one until after I graduated high school and I was starting college in 2015.
Right on. Well, why don't you tell us about the 2004 incident then?
Well, we did you say the 2004 or 2015?
4, the first one.
Okay. I can remember I started actually writing in a journal and everything, trying to go and document everything that I've actually encountered and heard. And you'd be surprised all the stuff that you can remember when you start writing stuff down that's happened to you.
Right.
I remember that night like it was yesterday. I was with my dad, and I was at my dad's for visitation, and it was late at night, and we was coming back from St. Louis from Busch Stadium from a night game. Cardinals, I can remember the Cardinals were playing the Royals that night, and it was pretty late, about midnight, clear night, no moon, and just your regular August night, you know. I mean, up there by where Red Bud and Randolph County is, it's all agricultural ground up there. There's a lot of corn, a lot of wheat, a lot of soybeans, a lot of barley, you name it, it's there. And then it was just eerily quiet that night. And we lived with my grandfather at the time, and he lived on this little stretch of road called South Prairie Road, right outside of Red Bud. And we got in the garage because it was a house that had a built-on garage. So there was the back door of the garage that you had to go in to get into the house. And then we're in the garage, and my coyotes out in the cornfield, they just start howling and yipping and raising all kinds of cane. And then amongst them, there just comes this loud screaming howl erupting out of the cornfield. And I mean, I was 9 years old when that happened. I'm 26 now. The power in that thing's voice was just so powerful. It was rattling the windows on the garage. You could hear them shaking inside the pane.
Wow.
And I literally about broke the door off the hinge trying to get in the house because it was just so terrifying.
Jesus.
Did you say your dad was out there with you?
Yeah. And, you know, I don't talk to my dad anymore and everything for personal reasons, but we were talking about it because 10 years later in 2014, whenever I found the Ohio Moaning Call on YouTube, I went and I was just surfing. I called him in after I played it, and I played it for him. And I said, "What's that sound like?" And he goes, "That sounds familiar." And I said, "Dad, that's what we heard 10 years ago when we come home from St. Louis." Well, he's the kind of person, he just doesn't believe in anything. And he doesn't put no stock in that kind of stuff. And honestly, I didn't either until I had that encounter. I just thought it was straight up damn lies.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put no stock in the folklore, none of the legends, none of the reports that were given in until I had my first encounter.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So your dad never really talked about it too much, though, that night after he heard the scream? What did you guys say to each other?
He'd bring it up. He'd bring it. The only time he'd talk about it is whenever I brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just entertain it, and he would joke and poke fun at me about it and say that I was crazy. And he, to this day, I still hear him saying that I'm crazy for still doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that area, that's not very wooded. That's not.
No, you can pull up Google Earth where South Prairie Road is in Randolph County, Illinois, and you can turn it on Google Maps, turn the satellite switch on, and you can see it's all agricultural ground, very sparse, and it's heavily populated too. It ain't like the next neighbor is like a half mile down the road. Right there where my granddad's house sits is my cousin Oscar and my cousin Leland right next door. Like our property lines are like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's how close the houses are to each other.
So where do you think these things are living out there?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there's a lot of farm country up there. There's big name farmers like Groman Hog and Seed Stock.
Mm-hmm.
They own, I mean, millions of acres in that county alone, not counting Monroe and Perry County. They go and they buy up all these big plots of land to go and use for agricultural and harvest. And, you know, there's a lot of old barns up there. They go in out there where all these other plots are. They don't keep all their equipment on site. You know, they're probably out there twice a year to go and seed it and then harvest it and then treat it with anhydrous. They'll go and be out there maybe 2 or 3 times total a year.
So they could be hiding in those barns or something.
They could be hiding in the barns. Exactly.
Zach, did you say you heard coyotes howling and then you heard this thing? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about your other encounter then, the next one?
Well, like I said, I didn't have my first face-to-face encounter until August 2nd of 2015, and it was right before I was getting ready to start college at John A. Logan. I remember the date exactly because it's my mother's birthday. I got a call about 5 o'clock, 5:30 that morning from my neighbor, Rock, and he said, Zach, your cattle are out again, and our properties are right up against each other. And like I said, I live on a cattle ranch. We own about 260 acres, and we got about 40 head of Black Angus.
Okay.
Nice.
So, I mean, we have ground, like, I'll just put it like this. We have ground in 2 different counties.
All right.
So, and then we're just right down because we have all these paddocks and everything that we rotate them year round with. So that way they still have enough ground to go and pick. And, they were off over here behind the house, and Rock just lives right over here about a quarter mile. So he wasn't that far, and it was just right down the fence row. He said they was right by my house. And so I said, okay, I'll be down there a little bit and I'll get them. And I took the whip with me. I took the fiberglass stick with me that we used when we were corralling cattle. And I took my shotgun because in August it's squirrel season. So I had some number 6s with me. And I figured, if I see a squirrel, I'm going to take him home, pop him in the ass, and take him home, put him in the stew pot.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
apologize for my language.
No, you're fine, bud.
I'm a country boy.
You're fine.
Just have at it. However you
But
want.
I was out there and I got the cattle up, pulled the fence back together, and I just jerry-rigged the wire back together, and I was going to come back with new wire, and I was going to fix it later in the day. So I'm coming back up towards the house because I had to cut down through the woods and go downhill and across the creek and across another field to get to where they were at, because you couldn't get to where they were at unless you had permission from the landowner that they were on. And he doesn't let nobody go back in there and ride on his property, so you have to walk in and not get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got in, I got out, and right out here behind the house, there used to be a big grove of Russian olive trees. And if you guys ever seen Russian olive trees, you know what I'm talking about. The big old bush, you got the big long buckthorn on them, probably about 4 inches long. They'll stick you right through your boot.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a big bunch of Russian olive trees in this little grove behind the house. And I was probably about maybe 50 or 75 yards from my house. And so we after that, we went and we bulldozed it out. But back in 2015, whenever it was still there, I was coming out of the tree line. I was cutting through this little path that runs in between them, and it opens up on the north end. And I heard something walking, and it's squirrel season. I thought it was my neighbor Chris because I was on his property at that point. And I thought, he's probably out squirrel hunting. He's just screwing around with me. Mm-hmm. And I said, Chris, is that you? And I didn't hear nothing. But whenever I would start walking, it would start walking. And whenever I'd stop, it would stop. And you could hear it getting closer and closer and closer. And I'm like, Chris, you better not be screwing around with me, dude. And usually Chris is a dead giveaway if he's trying to hide because he'll giggle. And I mean, he'd suck at interrogation. He'd be like, I did it. I'm guilty. I'm sorry. That's how bad he is. So you would know if it was him screwing with you. And I said, and next thing you know, it started coming through. And I said, who's there? I just raised my voice. I said, who's there? And next thing you know, one of the tops of those Russian olive trees just started shaking and thrashing real bad. And it was thrashing it so bad the leaves were falling off of it. And the leaves never fall off of it till the fall, till probably about October. And I mean, that thing was darn near a bare skeleton at that point. And I said, who's there? Tell me who you are. I got a gun. I don't want to have to shoot you. And I was trying to listen to see if it could have been somebody screwing around or anything. Well, then I just chambered around thinking it could have been, a mountain lion or something that was up in that tree making a lot of racket. So I shot in the air, and this thing comes bolting right out of that Russian olive grove about 30 foot away from me. And this thing was about 6.5, 7 foot tall, jet black hair. And jet black. I mean, black, like black marker black.
Wow. All right.
And then it just took off running. Whenever I fired that shot, it was gone.
On 2 feet?
On 2 feet.
Okay. And how long did you see it before it got out of view?
For about 5 seconds.
Okay.
That fast?
It ran down the hill and got in the trees, and I didn't see it. But I mean, that thing was covering some ground. It was in a wide sprint. It was running faster than what Usain Bolt would.
Once you collected your thoughts and kind of realized what happened, what did you think? Did you think, oh, I just saw a Bigfoot, or?
Yeah. Because I've hunted these woods all my life. I've been hunting and fishing ever since I could walk. With my granddad would take me out hunting and fishing ever since I could walk. I know, and I study extensively, and I keep up to date with the DNR, what the DNR is turning loose out here. And I take in reports from other people, not just DNR that's reporting these things, because DNR likes to cover up shit.
Yeah.
Did you?
And I go and I took off. I ran back to the house. I come inside the house, slammed the door, locked the deadbolt, collapsed down by the door, and my mom was in the kitchen making breakfast. And she said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you, Mom." She goes, "Well, you're white as a sheet and you look like you just saw a ghost." And I said, "It wasn't no ghost that I saw."
Wow.
Zach, did you get a good look?
Said,
did you get a good look at his face, at the face of the creature?
No, it was just a profile,
side view. What
it was
did
a side
you see?
view for about half a second, and then it was the back view for the rest of the way. Assholes and elbows, exactly.
Did you notice any kind of smell before, during, after you saw this thing?
No.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I mean, a lot of people ask me that question, and there's only been 2 times that I've ever out here in this area ever encountered a smell. In 16 years of doing this.
Okay.
I've only encountered a smell twice.
So you're getting out and about, and you're looking for these guys down there. Is that right? Are you going on expeditions and stuff yourself and heading that kind of stuff up?
Me and my team do.
Okay, that's awesome.
So you're pretty far down there. Is that are you in like the foothills down there? Are there some caves? Are there cave systems down there?
Yes, there is. Where we are, as we put it, we're down here where the turkeys crossbreed with the owls to make turkeys.
Okay.
Nice.
We were getting a lot of people coming on lately and talking, Zach, about Southern Illinois encounters. Honestly, it's kind of sprouted up on us here recently. So it's interesting that we get you on here and you're actually going out, heading up expeditions with your team and all that. Have you had anything else, any other kind of run-ins, or can you tell us more about encounters that you've dealt with down there?
Yeah, there's one of my most recent encounters was back in March of this year, March 9th. And it was an actual physical encounter. I mean, hands-on.
Okay.
And well, back at the time, back in March, I was working at a gas station. I loved to camp, and it was getting right about the right type of weather I like to go camping in. And I camp in a hammock and a rain tarp. So, and I got 260 acres. I go out here and camp.
Right.
I don't have to go to the national park.
You got your own national park. Yeah.
Exactly. But, no, I went and I only had days off on Tuesdays and Wednesdays during the middle of the week. I never had weekends off, so I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to get my stuff together and I'm going to hit the woods. And I went camping at the same exact camp. It's a little base camp I built and still working on. And I was up there Labor Day weekend of last year, the Friday before Labor Day, and something was moving around my camp, but it always stayed outside of firelight. The only way you could see it was the reflection of its eyes from the fire.
Okay.
But this time it came into camp after the fire went out.
All right.
So, and of course, not only that, there was a lot more going on that I was doing there at camp. I was cooking that night. I went out and I bought me a little tripod for cooking that you find at Walmart. It's got the little grate with a chain that hangs down in the middle over the fire.
Yep.
I was cooking steak and chili that night.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
No wonder you brought something in.
Marbled steaks with Hormel chili.
You'd have brought me in too. I'd been like, "What you got there?"
But
so what happened?
Well, I was struggling to keep that fire going because all the wood up there I'd already burnt through, and I still hadn't had time to go and get it because I was working so long an hour, and I didn't have time to go up there to cut trees and split logs so that way they'd cure. And so I was just grabbing whatever I could off the ground around camp, trying to stock up. And it was real soft wood, and soft wood ain't like hardwood. It's going to burn like paper.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was struggling to keep that fire going, mainly because I wasn't expecting anything to happen. I was just trying to keep that fire going so I didn't freeze to death like I did over Labor Day weekend. And, of course, that was my fault. Labor Day weekend, I didn't have an underquilt on my hammock like this time. So convection got me that time. But I just was trying to keep that fire going, and I just have just a regular little fire pit that's made out of sandstone rocks just piled up in a circle. And just to describe how my camp looked to you, and I had a big 12 by 15 tarp on the west side as a windbreak to keep that wind from hitting that fire and blowing the embers out into the woods.
Okay.
So, and then I had my little tripod for cooking, and then I had my rain tarp over my hammock and my underquilt. Had the side-by-side parked around on the right side of the hammock on this side, and just had all my stuff up underneath my rain tarp. I had the shotgun with me. Whenever I go in the woods, I'm packing a 20-gauge shotgun with 3-inch slugs in it now, ever since an encounter I had in 2017. But I'll tell you that one in a bit.
Okay.
And I'm laying in my hammock and everything, and I'm just chilling out. I'm listening to the sounds of the woods. And I had my phone on my chest, and I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. I think I was listening to the old episode where he had Mike Tyson on.
All right.
And every so often I'd hear something move over on the west side of my camp. Well, I kept a lantern up here by the head of the hammock on all night long, and then I had my little headlamp on my head. And if I'd hear anything, I'd pull it off my head, kick it on, and I'd look around in the woods. But anytime I'd kick that light on, it would stop moving. But it would stop moving, and then I'd get that light to somewhere else with the light still on, and it'd start moving again. So I was thinking it was trying to stay out of the light. So I shut it off, and this was from about 7, 8 o'clock until about 10 o'clock that night. There was what we call around here. We call it the atomic bird. You've heard of the bionic bird. Well, we call it the atomic bird. And I mean, this thing is just a bird that just is like Energizer bunny running on nuclear power. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going, just making all kinds of whistling noise. And I mean, we got whippoorwill out here. We've got finches. We've got all kinds of songbirds. We got the mockingbird. But I mean, this thing sounds like a bird, but it's a lot more powerful. It has a lot more decibel to it.
All right.
And so, I mean, that thing you could be on the one side of a 100-acre field, and it'll be over on the other side, and you could hear it like it was right next to you.
Okay.
And so, I actually got it on camera where it was real faint. You could hear it on my YouTube channel. And then, of course, in this same area, I'd been out with a professor from North Carolina State University, and we'd actually got a howl on audio recording. And I just really wary whenever I go in that area, because that's the same area that I've had a majority of my encounters at. But I've always, been looking for them. This time I wasn't looking for them, and they decided to show up.
Okay.
And I was laying in the hammock, and it was probably about maybe 2:00 in the morning. I dozed off about 1:30 finally. And, I mean, this thing moved in such stealth that I didn't hear it until it took 3 steps, and it was right up on me. And it was just 1, 2, 3, bam. And it hit the rain tarp and it hit me through the rain tarp of my hammock, and my hammock swung out like this, and I was ejected from my hammock.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I flew through the air about 2 foot off the ground for about 4 or 5 feet, and I hit with so much force on this stump that was up out of the ground where it was off. It was solid, but it was still rotting, but it was still solid enough I couldn't knock it down with my foot. I hit that thing with so much I broke the stump off. That's how much force I come out of that hammock with. It's like I was shot out of a cannon.
So this thing actually body slammed you and sent you flying.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
It checked me.
All right. So then what?
Wow.
And here's the thing though, it all happened so fast that all I could do was scream. I went and I hollered, "Get out of here!" And I went and I scrambled, and the shotgun was loaded, sitting there in a chair right next to my hammock. And it happened so fast I couldn't even get to the gun.
Mm-hmm.
I gathered myself, and I still had my. I was in my hammock, and it hit me with such force, and I went flying out there. It made my cowboy boots fly off my feet.
Jesus.
You were in a dead sleep too, right? When this hit you?
I was in a dead sleep. I mean, I'm a heavy sleeper, but but for some reason they went and I'm aware of what's going on even whenever I'm in a deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like people go and, like, for an example, if I'm in my house asleep in my recliner and somebody says, "Raise up, Zach, I need to get through," I'll raise up in my recliner in my sleep and then lay back down.
So what happened after?
So I'm still aware of what's going on.
What happened after you stood up or got up? Did you see it standing there?
I crawled across the ground, and I crawled up underneath the hammock after I got the gun and kicked my headlamp on, and you could see it walking down the hill. And I could have put one right in his ass if I wanted to. He was that close, and I would not have missed.
Was it
what color was that one?
Silver.
Silver.
Interesting. Was he? How tall do you think he was?
Oh, about 8.5 foot. Probably weighed about maybe 600 to 700 pounds.
Do you think he
was
was
a big boy?
Yeah, you think he was an older one, and maybe he was trying to push some dominance against you or something like that?
I do. I mean, we got one out here. I mean, the majority of my encounters that I've had, other than this one, they've all been passive. But this one is one that's been reported not just by me, but all of my neighbors out here. He's brazen, and we've dubbed him El Diablo.
Okay.
I mean, he's that brazen. I mean, he's been around here for years. like our first reporting that we had of him actually came from my neighbor, where the guy had about 30 goats, and all but like 5 of them were killed in one night. Their necks were broken, and they were stacked up in the corner of his goat pen. They weren't just like dogs where they're scattered about. These things were laid up in a pile.
Wow.
And then this thing has no problem coming up close to houses. We've had this happen twice here at my house. Because we all live out here in this little community called Attila. And there's like 5 or 6 houses right here on my stretch of road as it is. And there's farm ponds and livestock everywhere out here. This thing has no problem coming up to close to houses. One time, my mother was laying in bed whenever she was still married to my stepfather, and she was just sitting up reading a book, and the cat was sitting in the window. It was summertime, and we had the windows open, letting the air in, and the cat was sitting in the window looking out the screen. And next thing you know, that cat just started having a fit. His tail was like that, and he was growling and hissing. And she looked over and she says, "What's wrong, Freckles?" Next thing you know, that screen comes flying out of the window, and she sees an arm reaching in for the cat.
Wow.
That's when we started keeping a gun in the house.
Yeah.
And then here, probably about 1.5 to 2 years ago, we had the same problem because the cats we had back then, they're all passed on now. We got 3 new cats. And we have the real big bay window in the kitchen that you see in double wides. We live in a double wide out here, and it's got one of those, and it's got the really big screens. And so my mom was asleep, and she come in to make her coffee one morning, and the screen is out of that window too. Window is wide open, and all 3 cats are sitting there looking out the window. And she walked up and she looked at the cats, and she said, "What's wrong, babies?" And they all scattered. They were evidently on edge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Because they were evidently watching something we couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you lived there, Zach?
I've lived here all my life. I've lived here for 26 years, except for 8 months I lived up in Joliet.
Gotcha. And you've had stuff going on ever since you were a kid, and this continues to go on.
Every generation of my family's had an encounter since 1840, when the 2 brothers, Charles Frederick and William Henry, came over from Germany.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you tell us any more encounters or stories that you've got about your area? What's going on there?
Yeah, there was one. I posted a picture of it on Facebook because I'm an artist. I draw what I see, or if I have a vision in my head of something, that would look good on paper, I draw it. I started drawing, some of the Bigfoot that I've seen. Okay. One that sticks out to me especially is one that I've dubbed Scar. And the reason I call him Scar is because I had an encounter with a Bigfoot probably about a half mile from here that was brown in color, brownish black, and I was so close to him I could see he had a scar on his cheek.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Why don't you tell us about that one?
Yeah, I will. Hold on a minute. No, that night, because I suffer from insomnia, so I'll be up all hours of the night. Right. And because I live out in the middle of nowhere, there's not a lot of traffic out here. So I'll go out and walk out there on the road at night. And I got all this ground out here on the farm, so I got freedom of it, and I can walk the ground or I can walk the road. I walked up and I sat up at the barn for a little bit, worked on a little tractor, because it was in mid-August of that year. It was, when was it? 2016, 2017 was one of those years. I know it was in August. Mm-hmm. We were cutting hay. It was our second cutting of hay. We do round bales and square bales to sell. And we have a lot of deer out here. And the deer like to get in there and tear our hay bales all to shit. I mean, eat them up, tear them up, So anytime we see deer around our hay, we go in and we'll run them out. I was out there at the barn, and I went out back up behind the barn, and we got this power line that run across the middle of our property. And I went out there, and I just sat down up against the power pole like this, and I was just looking up the stars. I was looking to see where all the constellations are, looking at the Milky Way, and I heard something moving down by the hay bales at the bottom of the hill. And I turned my headlamp on, and I had a 200 lumen Ozark Trail headlamp. And there was eye shine down at the bottom of the hill. And I was like, I swear to God, if them deer are down there again, I'm just going to pop them, both of them. And I walked down there to go run them out, and then one of them stood up. And it was tall, because the eyes were low to the ground, like it would be whenever a deer's bedding down.
Mm-hmm.
But these things stood up taller than, one of them stood up taller than a deer. And I just saw that thing get up and then just keep going and going and going. And there was the one that I got within about 30 feet of, because I wanted to keep a little bit of distance between him and me, and I had a 38 with me. And I was just mesmerized by it. And whenever I shined the light on him, he kind of did like this.
Covered his face with his hand.
Covering his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm just like, and I put my hands out to the side because I could see him. He was eyeballing where that pistol was in that holster.
Oh, wow.
And I put my hands out because, I do believe these things are very smart, more smarter than what we give them credit for a primitive creature.
Too. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I believe that they do have, some kind of a means of communication, whether it be whoops. I even believe they can do sign language.
Right. Okay.
Like, because, I mean, look at Coco the gorilla. She can speak sign language.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just put my hands out to the side away from the gun so that way he knew I didn't mean him any harm. And then he let his hand down, and I'm still looking him square in the face. And that's whenever I noticed the scar.
Gotcha.
And I looked at him like this, just looking him up and down, and his head went the same way as mine. And I'm like, what's he doing? And I went and I did like this. He followed my lamp to the side like this. So it was to the right and then to the left.
Mm-hmm. I'm checking you out too.
Huh?
He's checking you out too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just mesmerized. And out of a lot of the encounters I've had, I never felt threatened one bit by him.
What did his face look like? What?
Big, broad nose. It was sort of like an ape's, but it had the bridge like we do. But the nostrils were turned out like this.
Okay.
And then other than that, he had red eye glow from the headlamp. It wasn't eye shine. His eyes were just reflecting the lamp.
Huh.
And it was faint enough, but I believe that, the further away you get from him, the bigger that glow response is going to be that's glowing back at you from the light hitting them in the eyes like you do with deer. I could get right up next to you and I could shine a light in your eyes. I won't see nothing. But if I get back far enough away from you, it's going to glow real big.
Mm-hmm.
So,
did he have his mouth open at all, or did you notice his mouth or his jawline?
He would sit there. He would sit there because the gnats were really bad that night. I do remember that. I was squatting my shoulder and everything, and he would sit there and his face would twitch and everything like he was trying to shake them off of him. Like they were trying to get in his ears, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'd go and he'd sit there and
move his mouth.
Move his mouth because those gnats would go flying around his mouth. You could see him in the light. And I just looked at him and I said, I see you, big boy. You ain't hiding from me. And he just went, "Huh." And then behind the hay bale up come two females.
Nice.
And they took off walking. And then he started backpedaling, and then he turned and walked off right behind him. And they went up the hill and out of sight.
Did you notice they had breasts? Is that why you said you were the females? Okay. Wow.
Hmm.
So what'd you do? What'd you do after that, Zach?
I stood there and watched them go. I made sure they left before I left.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
You know, because we're still dealing with a wild creature.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to go and run from a
Don't
wild
turn
creature.
your back on them.
And you don't want to turn your back on them because they'll instigate chasing them.
Yep.
And then they'll see you as prey, potentially.
Did these things look like a gorilla like or more human like in the face?
Well, you've seen how that video that's shared on Facebook of that gorilla walking at the zoo, slinging its arms.
Yeah.
But it was going side to side. These things don't do that. What I've seen. I mean, I've seen these things run before. And these things, I've seen them keep pace with white-tailed deer running wide open.
Yeah, well, if they can catch deer, they're obviously fast enough to run one down one way or the other.
Oh, they can catch deer. I saw one time in 2016 whenever it was shotgun season, and I was out deer hunting on my property. And I was on the property in Saline County. And I was down in this little valley facing east towards the sun as it was coming up. And I could hear something tearing through the brush up on the hill down on the north end. And it was a white-tailed buck just hauling ass hard as he could go. And I thought it's something like a coyote or something chasing him. Well, about that time, I hear something else chasing him, coming up behind him. And I'm like, it's probably another buck running this one off. And then lo and behold, here comes a Bigfoot running wide open, and it come up and it grabbed the whole of that deer like a PBR bulldogger, and by one antler and its chin, and twisted its neck and broke its neck, and it fell over dead.
Wow.
I heard that's what they do. They
I can attest that. I mean, he come right up because I used to bulldog in high school. I was part of the high school rodeo, and I used to be a bullfighter and a bulldogger, and I used to do calf roping and everything. And you know, I mean, that thing just run right up alongside like I would and got a hold of it around the neck, then reached up with one hand around one antler and grabbed around its muzzle and just yanked the shit out of it. And you could hear the bones go crack.
Wow.
Then it just picked that deer up underneath its arm and took off walking.
Wow. That's crazy. How far away do you think you were when you saw that?
I was about maybe 60, 70 yards. So a pretty good ways.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, I would have been like, well, I guess we're done for the day.
I stayed in the blind until high noon whenever I could actually see. And that was a good 4 or 5 hour wait that I stayed in that blind because it was still, it was light enough, but it was still dark right at daybreak, but it was light enough you could actually see the silhouette and then little bits of light because it was still foggy that morning. And you know, even at night, whenever it's a full moon, and if there's fog on the ground, that light from the moon or the sun will hit it and it'll light up the whole area.
Right.
Zach, you've had a lot of encounters and seen a lot of things. What's your take? What's your philosophy on these things?
Oh, glad you asked that. I have actually, I'll read it to you out of my journal because somebody actually tasked me as a little project to go and make up a character profile.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Let's hear it.
And anybody that goes and they hear about character profile, I based it on, you know, like how police officers, law enforcement does it when they're dealing with a perp. Right. So that's how I did it. And this is all based off my personal research and experiences and all educated guesses and my own personal opinions. So you take them as you are, and I do not claim to be an expert whatsoever.
Sounds good, man.
Okay.
But character profile of the North American Sasquatch. When it comes to the North American Sasquatch, we're dealing with a flesh and blood creature that is extremely intelligent, more than we give them credit for. In my experiences, I've found that they heavily rely on stealth. And I've found that they are able to hunt successfully in groups and on their own. I do believe that they do, however, live in the family units. The size may vary. Another point I'll make is this. Like every animal, there is an alpha male and or alpha female that calls the shots in the pack, meaning there has to be a social hierarchy.
Right.
I also believe that they are not monogamous. I believe that the alpha male has multiple mates, or a harem, as I call it. And that from the harem theory comes from whenever I saw Scar with those two females.
Right.
Right.
Because I think I walked in on them, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Gotcha. Getting busy.
Yeah.
Busy in the hayfield.
That's right.
Puts a whole different meaning on the term roll in the hay.
Yeah, right. It does. Yes, it does.
I'll continue here.
Yep,
From other researchers across the world that I have spoken to and the hundreds of reports I've read, Sasquatch has no problem being vocal. Whoops, howls, samurai chatter, wood knocks, rock clacks, all are many sounds that have been recorded, reported, and I have heard personally. I have also found that they are territorial and will defend it, whether with distraction by leading you in another direction or by aggression by coming into your camp and attacking you. They will even mark their territory with structures made from trees and parts of trees and rocks. And I actually did a hand drawing of some of the structures that I've actually found.
All right. Gotcha.
Like you've got the X structures, your teepees, your arch, the what I call the compass point. You'll find them in the forks of trees, and it'll be two limbs, and they'll be pointing like this in a cross formation laying up in the fork of that tree.
Yeah, I've seen those.
What do you think they're doing these for? Is it a sign? Is it a this is my
I believe it's a signpost. I believe it's a directional marker.
Okay. Or I always thought maybe they were making like a little shelter or something like that for the night, but I don't know.
The thing with the egg structure usually found at trailheads sometimes can be believed to be used as a quote unquote do not enter sign for Bigfoot.
All right.
Okay.
The teepee structure believed to be used as a territory boundary marker. The bigger the structure, the bigger the male that made it, usually either freestanding or built around a tree. I found both.
Okay.
The bend or the quote unquote arch believed to be a trail marker. I found that they are usually bent over, pointing towards a food or water source. Anytime I found the archways, the way they was bent, not too far from there was a water source or a food cache, whether it was berry bushes or an agricultural ground. And sometimes I found them close to farms, pointing in the direction of grain bins and storage silos.
All right.
Interesting.
Rock stacks, trail markers usually found in or along a creek bed, usually measuring 12 inches to 18 inches tall. I found that's found a series of rock stacks. I found 13 rock stacks going along in a creek bed for about a good mile, running in the same creek.
Wow.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know what they mean. I honestly think they could be using them as a travel route. We have cameras all over out here and along where our property line is around the perimeter. And they send notifications to our phones direct, whether it's photograph or video. And if it's somebody, all we got to do is call the game warden or the cops out here and they come and get them.
All right.
Gotcha. Well, that's some great stuff that you got there, man. I'm glad you put that down in the journal.
No kidding. That's awesome.
And it hits a lot of points that I feel similar about as well. And what Brian and I are experiencing as we do this podcast together. It all weirdly ties together in strange ways. Some of the things you're saying as well. So,
Another important thing to know about Sasquatch is that they are omnivorous. There's been reports of them feeding on roadkill and eating apples and apple orchards. Even reports of them getting into trash cans and dumpsters looking for food. That last point means that they are quote unquote creatures of opportunity and will do anything for an easy meal. That's why I think they came into my camp. at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then whenever I got ran out of after that night back here in this past March, I got in the side by side and I was home in 5 minutes.
Mm.
And I went back the next day to tear down camp and nothing was bothered. My fire pit was not bothered. My hammock was not, and my rain tarp was not torn down. My camera equipment was still there that I left because I filmed some of my campouts for my YouTube show, Duke Randall Outdoors.
No other footprints or anything?
No, the ground was too hard. It was like concrete.
Okay.
And I mean, there was some kick up marks and leaves and everything, but you weren't going to find, footprints.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I mean, even my food bag, I left my food bag there and it was not even bothered. It was still hanging up in a tree.
Wow.
It was
That's
taken.
surprising.
I actually have had food taken before back at the camp back in the Friday I went camping before Labor Day whenever I did the overnighter in the hammock. And of all things I stole, and I had it in my cooler up underneath of my hammock, and I had a brick on it so that way nothing could get in there. Good sized cinder block. And there was a can of tobacco and a package of brats missing.
Oh, they took tobacco, huh? Okay.
They took, I mean.
That'll be interesting when they try that.
Just like Copenhagen.
Uh-huh.
That's what they took.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Huh.
Wonder what they did with that. Probably
I
tried
don't
it and
know.
I was like, "Duh." Well, Zach, man, we appreciate you coming on and telling your stories.
Yeah, that was awesome.
What's your Facebook group? Do you have a Facebook group you say that you're going out?
YouTube.
We have our team.
YouTube?
The Southern Illinois Monster Hunters on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
Also, I have my outdoor channel, Duke Randall Outdoors, on Facebook, and then it's the episodes debut also on the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters YouTube channel. I also have a podcast called Wrestling with Monsters.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have to
Nice.
check you guys
Check
out.
that out.
Hell yeah.
It's on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, stuff like that.
Right on. We'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
It's me, my cousin, and one of my other friends who's also a cryptozoologist based out of Thibodaux, Louisiana, and he's actually a shaman who's actually a retired pro wrestler.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
Cool, man. Well, once again, we appreciate you coming on and telling your story, Zach. It means a lot for us to have you on.
We'd like to have you back too.
Sure.
Oh, hell yeah. Just hit me up anytime.
All right, man. Well, you have a good one, man, and we'll talk to you again soon. And if you see anything again, get in touch with us for sure.
Oh, we just barely scratched the surface. I got a lot more to tell you guys.
Right on, bud. Sounds good.
Right.
All right.
Well, I want to hear it. So
have a good one, boys.
Right. See you.
How's that?
Wow, man. Can you believe that crazy stuff that was going on with Zach?
Holy crap. I believe I'd have shit my pants on the
Having a little rendezvous in the hay going on. I mean, jeez.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. He's got a lot happening with himself too, with his live stream and podcast too. So that's good for him.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. Yep.
Hopefully he has some more things.
Hopefully
happening.
that goes well with him. And
yeah, absolutely. People check him out. And again, thanks everyone for listening so much.
We appreciate all of you.
Right. Absolutely. Reach out to us at Cryptid Creatures anywhere that you can see us on Facebook or Instagram, and our email is info@cryptidcreatures.co again. So say hello.
Get a hold of us.
Yep.
Let us know.
And spread the word. Again, thanks a lot, guys. Brian, appreciate another episode with you, man, as always.
Oh, yeah, another great one. It's always fun.
Right on, brother. You take care. Until next time.
You too. All right.
See you.